right, I think we're going to get started because we have a lot to go through. So, my name is Nick. I hope you're enjoying C3 so far. I'm joined here today with a couple of co-presenters. I have Russell Huizinga, who is a data analyst who's been working really hard on those data transformations that Jim was talking about earlier. Additionally, I have Curtis Donater with us. Curtis worked on the single sign-on of integrating Staff Portal with the new Thoughtspot tool. So they're going to be able to help us out as we go along. Thoughtspot is this really awesome tool that's going to help you take your data and make data-driven decisions. And really, POSSE at its core is this big workflow engine, right? And as POSSE helps you do your best work, as it helps you answer questions, as it creates jobs and processes and legal entities and all of these things, it holds a ton of data. Thoughtspot is going to give you a new way to access that data and transform data into decisions. It's going to help you keep track of key performance indicators, do analysis, and really access that data without any kind of coding needed. So we are going to use mostly data from our ABC solution, but the features you're going to see are applicable to any POSSE product. So if you have PLS, GCS, ABC, it doesn't matter. The features are going to be the same. The data might just not be what you'd expect, or it might look different than what you're used to right now. Thoughtspot has a ton of features, and we are going to be going at a pretty fast clip here in order to show as many of them as we can. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Russell and Curtis will do their best to answer any questions they can. We're going to hopefully have some time for maybe 1 or 2 live questions at the end. And any questions we can't answer, Russell's going to make a list and make sure we get answers back to you in the coming days. So with all of that said, I'm really excited. Let's jump into Thoughtspot and really see what it's all about. All right. So I want to start really quick by showing you a dashboard. This dashboard is going to give you an idea of what can be done when you put all these pieces together. If you've used the old ad hoc tool, you might have been familiar with the report pieces that you could see. A dashboard is very similar. It's made of different answers, which are basically report pieces, put together where you can see all of your data in one place. And Thoughtspot calls this a live board because these answers are live, the data is live, and we can interact with it. So for example, I could drill down right in this dashboard and get some more information. And this is not pre-configured. This is just available of any of the fields that I have access to. Additionally, I could filter down to a specific user in this case and see more specific information. And so over the next few minutes, we are going to see how you create answers and then add them to a live board like this, where you can see all of your information clearly in one place. So I want to jump over to the home screen really quick, and we are going to just kind of do some orientation here. There are things you'd expect. There's a nav bar and a search bar. On the bottom here, I have a list of all the answers and live boards that I have access to. So I can see which authors they are. I could filter this and sort it. I can even just take a look for my favorite answers and live boards. So this is a really easy way to grab what you need right when you log in. And actually, speaking of login, this is integrated tightly with the Staff Portal. So you can log in straight from Staff Portal without needing an additional login. On the right-hand side, we have the trending lists, which show trending live boards and answers. So you can see what your jurisdiction's actually making use of. And this is really great to ensure that what's being used is what you're updating. You know, we can see right here at a glance that the enforcement KPIs is getting used a ton. And so maybe when we have some time, this is a live board that we want to put some extra work into, add some things to, because obviously these KPIs matter to us a lot. And I skipped over the coolest part on purpose. In the middle here, we have our KPIs. So any KPI statistic that you have access to, you can pin right here on the home screen so you can see it right when you log in. And you can get more visibility on this if you'd like. So if I go to the monitor button, sorry, one moment here. If I go to the monitor button, we can create an alert and get these KPIs sent directly to our email. We can either have them on a schedule, So I can send this hourly, daily. I really like that it gives you the option to not send them on weekends. Weekly, pick the day it sends on, or monthly, and maybe have it send every couple of months or every single month. We can quickly add subscribers to this alert, and we can even add a custom message to give some context on how to read this KPI, what's good, what's bad, what we should watch out for. Additionally, we can set this KPI on a threshold so that that alert email doesn't get sent on a regular basis, but only when the KPI changes in a certain way. It goes higher or lower or hits a certain value, you can get an email right away to know that your stats have changed. Additionally, you can actually set when that threshold is checked. So whether if it's a long-running KPI, maybe you only need to check for changes once a month. Or if it's something that's very fast-moving and important, maybe you want to check it every single hour and get an email notification as soon as it changes. It's really up to you how you want to stay on top of your KPIs. But we can actually go farther. If you are watching a KPI and you notice there's a change, there are a lot of ways you can see what's going on. So for example, I could click on a KPI, and from here, I can run a change analysis. Because this is an AI-powered tool, ThoughtSpot is able to automatically look at the underlying data and then help you determine what's going on. So for example, we can see here that our complaint type inspections are lower than expected. And maybe that's something we need to look into. And additionally, this works for other attributes that are a part of this KPI. So we can get a lot of insights and kind of understand what's going on. Maybe our complaint types are down because we have less complaints. Or maybe our complaint type inspections are down because we have a ball being dropped somewhere and we need to work on something. It's not just data, it's data that drives your future decisions. But we can even do more. Maybe you have some specific questions. You notice that this inspection KPI is low and you want to know more in a really specific way. Well, we can do that too. From the search bar, we can do natural language queries. Because we're using large language models, this means we can ask our questions in plain English and get some results. We don't have search criteria. Instead, we can just ask. So, for example, I can ask the question, what is the number of inspections each month in 2024 versus 2023? And on the bottom, I get the regular search results you'd expect. But on the top, I get an AI-generated answer to my question. And just like every other place in the system, this is live. I could drill down into it if I wanted to. I could jump over and start making edits, save it. There's lots of ways I could start working on this answer to move it towards what I'd like. One thing that's really neat, on the bottom right here, we have the ability to give feedback. And so we can actually help the model, help the AI to have better context for future queries. So maybe this isn't what I expected. Maybe based on what I envisioned in my head, I had a different understanding of what this data should look like. Well, I'm going to tell it I'm not happy, and it's going to allow me to correct it. So I'm just going to do that really fast. And we want this to be 2024 versus 2023. And so now this is what I was expecting, year over year, to be able to compare months on top of each other. This is great. I'm going to submit it. And next we get a screen that allows us to match the sentence fragments to the tokens that ThoughtSpot uses, and allows us to really help it understand what language applies to what key attributes. And I'm just going to make some fixes here. I'm going to approve them all. Done. Took 2 seconds. And now we see when that answer generates, we get the answer I was hoping for. And on the top, we get a message telling us that our feedback has actually influenced this. So this is a great way to improve the quality of future results. And in fact, it goes farther. One danger with AI is if you give bad feedback, you can start to increase bad answers and hallucinations. We're actually able to edit the feedback that's given to remove bad or improper feedback. So if I go to my data, and on the bottom left here, I'm going to see this Sage feedback, we can see that feedback I just gave. And in fact, I could edit it if I wanted to, or I could simply delete it. You know, I gave that feedback, and after looking it over, this isn't quite what we wanted. It's not quite right. We're going to take that out. Take out the rest of this. And now, if I go back and run that question again, we're going to see that that first answer gets generated, the answer without my context I gave it, and there's no banner at the top. So not only can you give great feedback and improve the model, you can also roll back changes to ensure that you're giving only good feedback and improving future results. But maybe you want to go farther. Maybe you want more control than this, and you're not happy with the generative approach. You want to really pick and choose exactly what's being shown. Well, that's possible too. If I use the search data button, I can drop into a tag-based mode. And this is going to let me pick exactly with some precision what data is being shown. All I need to do is select the data source, and ThoughtSpot uses what's called models. Jim talked to them earlier as data transformations, and I can show one really quick. Here's a model that I've created that contains a bunch of different tables all put together to answer all, in this case, all the questions I have about applications. So all I need to do is go to my data source and select the model I'd like, and we'll see that the tags on the left change. So from here, there's no coding needed. I don't need to have any technical expertise. I can instead just pick the tags I want. So for example, I could say, give me a count of all the applications in the system. Oh, that's my fault for spelling wrong. Okay, there's 4. That's good to know. Maybe I want to take that a little farther. What are those by their status? Okay. What about if I want to break that farther down? What if I want to know on a timeline, what day of the week are these applications being, in this case, completed? But maybe we wanted that to be submitted. Let's change that up. Day of week. I'll go with completed. That's fine. So what you're seeing here, and I'm kind of doing this off my cuff, is that ThoughtSpot is automatically choosing an appropriate chart type to display the data we've asked. And so even just playing these examples off the top of my head, and they really are off the top of my head, ThoughtSpot is automatically choosing some appropriate charts for us to see. Or maybe I want to do this a different way. Maybe I want to go, give me a count of all the violations. Okay, there's 14. Let's break that down by license type. And let's break that down again, but this time we want it with a time area. So let's say monthly. And there we go. Really quick, really easy to just select the data you want, no coding needed. From here, I can simply make my edits. I could hide certain values if I wanted to. I could apply filtering. I could drill down, as I've shown before. I can even reposition the x-axis or y-axis if I'd like to. I can even, on the right-hand side here, change what chart's being shown. So if I'm not happy with what ThoughtSpot selected, I can just pick something else. Maybe I want a donut. Or maybe I want a Sankey graph. Or maybe I want to go back to that line graph I was happy the first time. Very quick, seamless, easy to transition between different values here. And additionally, you might notice that my chart here looks different than it did before. That's because when I switched to a donut, ThoughtSpot changed how the data was visualized, because it doesn't make sense for a donut graph to have a monthly element. So it rearranged things to make it display well. And I can fix that myself too and change it how I want. If I open this edit configuration, all I need to do is drag and drop what data is being visualized where to change how the chart looks. I could even choose for something not to be visualized if I wanted to. It's very, very simple. And from there, I can add other things. I could say, add some grid lines to this. I can even, this is really handy, I can even zoom in on a specific area of the data if I want to focus on one specific spot. And it's very easy to resize it back down. Lastly, in this side menu, we can actually see the query that ThoughtSpot has generated to send to the data mart, to pull data from the data mart. This isn't something you'd need all the time, but it's really handy for debugging. If we look at the tokens and we're not seeing the data we expect, we can actually come in here, see the query, see what tables it's pulling data from, and have a really quick understanding of maybe what was misunderstood or misconfigured, and work from there to correct the problem. So it's a really robust tool. There's lots of options here, and it's fast. It really helps you get answers out of your data super, super quickly. From here, I could save it. I can even decide if it's discoverable by others or if it's just for me. And from there, I can just pin it to my live board and jump back. And even with explanation, that took a few minutes. So you could see how quickly you could start to build something that works for you. But we've listened to me talk for a while now, and I want to give us a little bit of variety. So I'm going to start asking Russell some questions. Russell's been working for Computronix for 8 years. He's currently doing all the data analysis and helping make our data mart work really, really well for ThoughtSpot. So Russell, I want to ask you, how do you see AI being useful for our clients and maybe just useful in general for government?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. One of the things about AI that I found particularly beneficial is really the time to create something is so much shorter. It saves time getting started. There's concerns around, is it going to hallucinate or is it going to get something wrong? But when it's done well, and this AI is done very well, it makes starting up and then critiquing a report from AI so much easier just to start from. I can just ask a question and away I go in this particular in ThoughtSpot. But in general, getting started and saving time is one of the things. And then also around the data exploration, it becomes one of those things where cross correlations between different sets of data is sometimes something that's hard for humans to pick up. AI will find a whole bunch of cross correlations, and some of them may be meaningful, and that saves you a ton of time in finding out those kind of unique situations you hadn't considered before.
Cool. Thanks, Russell. What do you think about ThoughtSpot specifically for AI? Is there any features that you're especially excited about?
Yeah, I got ahead of myself a little bit, but the most exciting thing that I've found is actually the asking the data question. When I'm getting started with a report or I have a question, somebody's asked me a question to get started on, it's just in the form of a question. It's just words, and I can start from that question. I can just type it out as if I was typing it into a chat to a colleague, and it gives me an answer that I can often will answer the question outright. And then to make it more presentable or to tweak maybe how it's presented, I might edit it, but it gives me that really solid starting point.
Cool. Is there I know you have a lot of experience in terms of reporting tools. How have you seen ThoughtSpot as a reporting tool versus other tools?
So yeah, before I worked at Computronix, I actually had a period of time where I was a BI consultant, primarily working with Cognos, IBM's tools, and TM1. And since then, I've also just kind of been interested in the field. I have kept up a certification with Power BI recently. So I've been using a number of tools. And the thing about ThoughtSpot that I appreciate the most right now is the kind of search-based motif they've gone for. Is it easy to use? Like I'm familiar with using Google, so I can start typing in questions when the search data is being done in that kind of tag-based mode. It feels a lot like using a search engine. Or their conversational AI is, of course, also fantastic. The other thing about it is that ThoughtSpot for me, as I kind of teach others inside our organization on how to do better reporting and how to use some of these tools, ThoughtSpot's been so easy to teach So it's been one of those tools that I found just kind of intuitively makes sense to people who may not have a ton of experience doing data analytics. So that's my personal opinion on those.
Cool, thanks. I really appreciate you sharing a little bit. I know you have a lot of expertise in this area. I want to go back to sharing my screen, and I want to run you guys through one more search data because there's actually some features I haven't touched on yet that I think are really awesome. There we go. All right, so we're gonna do one more search data. And we're gonna go back to our application model I switched off of earlier. And maybe we want the application fees. So how much has actually been spent on applications? Okay, in our little test system, it's $28,000. Maybe we want that, sure. By month of year, you'll notice here that ThoughtSpot automatically gives you a choice of which date you want to use. Because do we want month of year by completed date or by submitted date? It depends on the situation we're looking into. I'm going to say by completed date. And when I run this, you're going to notice that we get the months of year, but we also get a bunch of null values because there's a bunch of applications that haven't been completed. And we don't really want those in our data set when we're asking about completed application fees. But that's okay. I can right click it and choose exclude. And that's going to take out those null values. I could have easily just typed that. You can see the syntax for it at the top. And from there, I can just keep adding extra tags. I could choose the license type, break it down even farther. And now we get this nice, robust, complete set of data that could maybe tell us some things. Like, for example, we're getting lots of gaming operator applications between March and April, and that might be something we want to look into. I can clear all my tags with the X at the end, and then I could do something else. One thing I want to note is that you're able to add keywords in front of attributes. So if I were to choose just application jobs, I'm going to get a list of all the job IDs. But if I say to count the application jobs, now we get a count of it. So you're not just stuck choosing the tag. There's a number of keywords that can be used to really hone in on the data. It's not just the tags themselves. I could spend quite a while just playing with different keywords. But we'll say, yeah, we want by license type and premise type. And this is going to give us a nice full set of data to play with right now. But maybe you don't want a visualization. Maybe you want something other than a chart. Maybe you want to see the numbers underlying this nice graphical view. Well, you can do that too. On the top here, we have that toggle to switch to a tabular view, and you can see the numbers underlying in aggregate. However, you can go even farther. If I want to, I can use the show underlying data button, and that's going to show us the data in a non-aggregated view. So I can see line by line exactly what's building this chart. And if I want to, I can hover over any of these sections, and I can show the underlying data for that specific subset. And so you're able to pull all of these out as CSVs, and from there you could start playing with the data and doing whatever you'd like with it. Additionally, there's a couple other features that are cool. I'm just going to save this really quick. And we can share it. So I can send this to a user or a group of users. I can download this in a number of formats. So I can just download a PNG of the chart itself, or a CSV of the data, or an XLSX. But I can also do a sync. So this is really neat. There's a bunch of applications, such as Google Sheets, Excel, Teams, Slack, and more, that using a reverse ETL pipeline, ThoughtSpot can pipe data over to them. Effectively, what this means is that rather than a full API integration, there's a number of applications that all you need to do is a little bit of setup, and you can pipe data over to them. So for example, I have this Google Sheet I set up. This was as simple as logging in on the admin side, my account, setting up a few permissions. It took 5 minutes. And now, if I go back to ThoughtSpot, I can use a sync to Sheets. I can select the file. I can choose which sheet, hit save. And now when I go back, we're going to see that data comes in just like magic. It's great. And so this is a great way if you want to export data and then manipulate it or change its format, you could export it very easily into Sheets or Excel or something else. But I can do some other cool things. So we have this sync to other apps, and this is the list of other applications that it can sync to. And I'm going to choose Slack. So maybe you have a Slack channel with all of your team that you send information in and talk in. You can actually use Thoughtspot to share KPIs, charts, and really keep everyone on the same page. So everyone knows how you're doing and where you're going. So all I need to do, again, this setup took 5 minutes, but all I got to do is choose my channel, and I'm going to give it a description. And we can choose to either add an image of the chart or the underlying data or both. And what's neat is you can schedule these syncs. So I could say, hey, once a day, every day at 9 o'clock, send out this KPI in the channel so that everyone can see it. Everyone knows how we're doing for the day. And then when we have our team meeting, there's no confusion. Everyone's seen the chart already. Or maybe monthly or weekly. It's up to you. You can set these up to push data as needed. So I'm going to go over to my Slack channel. In just a moment here, it's going to populate. There you go. Super fast. So I can pull up that PNG, or I can open that CSV, and I can see all of that data that I've been given access to. Really fast way to share information to keep everyone on the same page with the same insights and start to collaborate. From here, I can just pin this other answer, go back to my live board, and there we go. 2 answers pinned in just a few minutes, even with a bunch of things added to it. Now, this is a lot. I've gone over a lot of features in 30-something minutes, and you might feel a little overwhelmed, but that's okay. ThoughtSpot has you covered. There is a great amount of information that ThoughtSpot has available. Jim talked about the community, which is very active. I've got questions answered on there very, very quickly. Additionally, they have really, really robust documentation that's easy to read and easy to navigate. But they also have this ThoughtSpot U, which is a bunch of classes to help you learn exactly what you need. So for example, I have a bunch of free e-learning classes, and you could just go in there and learn what you want. They also have certifications. And so with these certifications, you can see exactly what you need as a group, and then you can do an exam and prove that you learned it. What's actually also neat is that all the classes that are in the certifications are free. They are the same classes that you can do by yourself. So you only need to pay for a certification if you want to be able to prove that you've learned things. If you just want to learn for yourself, you can just do the free classes. They also have these paths available where you can learn exactly what you need for a given role. And so let's say I'm a business user. All I need to do is go in here, select the role, and now I have access to all of these classes that I can watch whenever I want and focus on just what I need. Now, additionally, because there wasn't enough already, they even have instructor-led classes. And so if you like, they have a number of online or in-person classes, and it's fairly robust. I'm going to open up the calendar here just so you get a look at what's coming up in the next month or two. You can see that every week they have something going on in October and November. So if you prefer a more hands-on approach, if you want a little bit more guidance, you can sign up for one of these classes and have someone give you a hand. So if you're feeling a little overwhelmed by the pace I'm setting here, that's all right. There's lots and lots of help. But I want to really quickly, now that we've set these answers, we're going to go over the dashboards themselves because there's some really cool stuff here. This is all test data just to give you a taste of what could possibly be done. But you can see here, I have on the left a number of KPIs. For example, total number of processes, how much time we spent in the system this month, how many processes we completed this month. And in the middle, I have this graphic showing the processes by type that are assigned. And I can see here really quickly at a glance, okay, our submit report process, we have a ton of them outstanding. Maybe we need to have a meeting. Maybe we need to talk and sit down and figure out what's going on here. Additionally, on the right, we have this to-do list. And this is showing which process is assigned to who, and you might notice that these are hyperlinked. I can click one of these and go straight back to Staff UI and go take a closer look there. And that is a custom formula I put in, but it's very easy to set up. So you could do this where for specific fields, you can grab the process ID or job ID even, and then jump straight back to the staff portal to take a look at what's going on. Additionally, I have this filter on the top that I've shown before that I can I can add someone. And now we're seeing just one specific user's statistics and outstanding processes and whatnot. But I can also edit this, and we could do some different things here. Actually, one moment. I want to remove that filter first. Perfect. If I go into the filter, I could change this to a multi-select if I wanted to choose multiple users at once. I could also decide which of the specific answers that this filter applies to. I can even link the filter to other models. So these different answers come from different models. And I can make one filter that hits multiple different answers on the dashboard at the same time. So we only need to have one as opposed to 3 different filters. And finally, I can make a filter mandatory. And what this lets me do is when someone logs in and they check this dashboard, they have to select the appropriate user. So that turns this into from a management dashboard to a personal dashboard. Someone logs in, they select their name, and they see their statistics. So rather than having to maintain 17 different dashboards for 17 different people, you have one dashboard that filters to the appropriate person or specifications. Maybe it's one dashboard that's broken up by license type, for example, or permit type. We can also add new tabs and separate information this way. And it's very easy to move data over. We can also resize it, all the things you'd expect. We can even add a note and give this a title. We can do formatting on this, and we can also, if I can click, we can add pictures. And there we go. Nice and easy. There's also even more we can do. I could download this as a PDF. We have a presenter mode where you can see exactly all that same data now as a PowerPoint. But what's cool here is that this isn't a static PowerPoint. I actually can go into any of these, drill down farther if I wanted to, or pull up the underlying data. It's not just a PowerPoint, it is an interactive presentation. And if people have questions, you are able on the fly to start poking at the data that you have available to them. Additionally, we can mark a board as verified. So if I want to, I could mark this, that I've checked it, and we get a banner on the top. What this is for is that you have a data expert or business expert check a board to ensure nothing's misconfigured. And once they're happy with it and satisfied, they can mark it, get this tag on the top, and now if someone goes to edit it, they are going to get a warning that, hey, this has already been verified. If you edit this, we're going to change the banner on the top to let people know it's been modified and it might need to be re-verified. So really great ways to ensure that you're making business decisions that are data-driven with the right data. We can also sync this to Slack and Teams, as I mentioned before. There are really a lot of ways here that we can take a dashboard, a live board, and make it into something useful. I do want to show you one more live board that I think is really cool. So here I've made a quick idea of an executive dashboard. So we can see the permits by location on this dot map. So maybe there's a specific geographical location we need to deal with. Maybe we need to see the fees and what days they're coming in. So for example, we notice that fees are coming in on Thursday. Maybe we need to have a bank deposit that day because we need to have the right cash in hand. Or we get a projection of all the permits or applications and where we're heading to year over year, so we can see how we're doing in terms of how many submissions we're getting and how busy we are. There is one last thing I want to show. On the bottom of this dashboard, I have created a very large pivot table. On the left is every single process in the system. And on the top is every possible outcome. This is a large table, even in our little test system. And you can imagine in a production system that this would be a lot of numbers. It would take a human a very long time to pull any meaningful insights out of this data. But with ThoughtSpot, we can do it in just a few seconds. I can use what's called Spot IQ, which is going to allow us to find outliers, trends, and cross-correlations in our data pretty much automatically. A little bit of processing time on this, but we're going to see that it's going to look at the underlying tables and it's going to give us some answers about how that works. So we see here it just took a couple seconds, open it up, and we get 20 different insights into how our process information is being used and things that we might want to know, which job has the most processes to it, or which staff is completing the most of them, or so on and so forth. And what's really cool is that this AI-driven analysis can actually be scheduled. So you could have this come on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. So if you have a business meeting coming up where you're deciding direction and vision and action items, you can have the analysis run beforehand, get sent directly to your email, giving you some insights that you can use as talking points and things to look into to help you make better data-driven decisions. So that's a lot of stuff. That's ThoughtSpot, though, in a nutshell. And I have a couple of minutes here, so maybe, Russell, do we have one or two questions you want to address, or we want to address?
The first question that I want to ask, so since ThoughtSpot's an external partner to POSSE, does data remain in the POSSE platform, or does it get replicated to the ThoughtSpot platform?
Right. So ThoughtSpot queries the data directly in the POSSE database. So they store some information about the data structure, but the data is not stored there. And there's a lot more detail about their policies that we've read through how their data is actually accessed by ThoughtSpot and the security around that. It's really quite intense reading. So, if you want to reach out and get more detail about that, though, we'd be happy to discuss more.
There are several questions, I'll try and make an amalgam of them, that are asking about how the data modeling works for AI to understand it. So questions about, so does AI join the tables and data? Is there manual intervention, manual steps in order to make that happen? So, pardon me. Can you speak a little bit to the question of, okay, so how do you actually get this up and running?
Right. So one of the steps that will be done before you can actually build reports is setting up those data models. And that's not something we had time to discuss at length today. It is something that requires a certain level of expertise. I found the tool quite easy to use, but I have a lot of experience in this field. But I do think that it is something people can learn. ThoughtSpot has training on how to set up models. Also, the work we've been doing to produce star schemas will help make that POSSE data easier to model. With star schemas, you really are just going to start joining dimensions to facts in one table, and then you're just going to start naming columns. But it is done manually by somebody with the permissions to be a data administrator in the system. And then setting up more is something that should be done by somebody with some data expertise. But for people who are interested in learning those skills, ThoughtSpot U has an excellent course. There's lots of resources about the basics of data modeling out there on the internet as well. So it is, honestly, it's a skill that I don't find too difficult to pick up, and this tool makes it very simple.
I'll give another plug to ThoughtSpot's training. We sat in some training sessions from them ourselves as we were getting acquainted with the tool, and it's quite excellent, both what's available online and their training sessions. A couple of questions about user access. So what kinds of user access are available to be configured? And a follow-up question to that too, is this tool for just internal staff, or what about the ability to share visualizations with the public?
So currently, the data access permissions, we have a kind of out-of-the-box setup we are aiming to deliver to anybody that brings in ABC data or PLS data, and we have a default schema that will be set up where users have particular access groups for their business area, but the permissions can be set up at a level of column level and row level security, which is something we haven't particularly set up, but it's something worth exploring in the future, rather than just specific data model or data table setup permissions, as well as when it comes to, sorry, what was the second question there, Curtis?
David, I'll speak to the last thing since we're closing in about 30 seconds here. Just the ability to make data visualizations public. Right now, that's not part of our initial offering for the integration, but there are integration possibilities that we're open to exploring. And then the last question is this a tool that's included with POSSE 8 licensing, or is this a bolt-on solution with an additional license? And that I can speak to as well. And this is an additional tool. It's not just folded into POSSE 8. So please contact your account managers if you're interested in diving into this. And you don't have to wait for POSSE 8. And that's everything. So thanks, everyone. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.